The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Farm Connections. I'm your host, Dan Hoffman. Today we explore growing and harvesting techniques for quality forage near Cannon Falls. Ken Tisi talks about the impacts of changing farm trends, and we take a look at the process of growing and harvesting peas near Owatonna. Stay with us. Farm Connections is next.
Welcome to Farm Connections with your host, Dan Hoffman.
Brought to you in part by Absolute Energy, a locally owned facility producing 115 million gallons of ethanol every year, proudly supporting local economies in Iowa and Minnesota. Absolute Energy, adding value to the neighborhood.
We're at the 29th Annual Hay and Forage Expo near Cannon Falls, Minnesota. And with us to talk a little bit about this show is Dina Morgan from Farm Progress. Dina, this is a great show. What's happening out here?
Yes, we are very excited to be here near Cannon Falls. It's been a great show today. The best thing I love about the Hay and Forage Expo is that there's lots of demonstrations that you can see, but there's also a really great exhibit field. So not only can you see the equipment working in action out in the fields, but then you can go talk to those exhibitors and learn more about their equipment and what they have to offer.
How many different exhibitors are here?
Today we have about 75 to 80 exhibitors that are showing off their products and services.
And how many live demos?
Live demos, we have mowing in the morning and then chopping, and then we take a break over the noon hour and finish up the day with raking, baling, and hay handling.
Do you have some custom operators come to the show?
Absolutely. Our target market is anybody who is going to produce or use hay. So that includes your dairy farmers, your custom harvesters or your custom hay producers, your beef farmers, and even your horse and small animal that would use hay certainly come to this event.
What's the importance of having farmers, vendors, and everyone come together in one spot?
The best thing about this show is that it has a lot of demonstrations. So yes, you can go to a dealership or you can go to a static show and look at a piece of equipment, but being able to see it actually working in field conditions, I think makes a big difference. So you can make an informed decision. And not only can you see one brand, but then you can see all the competitors too. You can see how it goes in the field, then you can go to the lot and talk to those exhibitors and find out more about their equipment. So it's really a good thing not only for our exhibitors who are showcasing their products and services, but also for the farmers. Maybe a local farmer doesn't want to go to the John Deere dealer because he has case equipment. Well, here he can see it and go talk to them and not feel like he's going to somebody new. So he can make a more informed decision and make sure that he's buying the equipment that's best for his fields and his conditions and what he wants to do.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Dina, for your time.
Thank you.
Stay with us as we learn more at the Hay and Forage Expo. I'm with Mark Hernke, the host at the Hay and Forage Expo near Cannon Falls, Minnesota. Mark, thanks for having us.
You bet. Thank you for coming.
Well, you've got a nice farm here. Tell us what's happening.
So behind us, you'll see a alfalfa field that we're going to be working. We're going to be cutting, mowing, raking, merging, round baling, and chopping. And what they want to do is everybody wants to preview their machines out here and to show everybody what their new machines can do.
Well, you mentioned the forage or the alfalfa behind us. I'm looking at this saying, wow, there's a lot of moisture in it. It's when I crimple it, it stays together, meaning there's a lot in it and I can feel it in my hands. Doesn't this go into a barn up in a haymow?
What we're doing is we'll be either chopping it wet and then piling it and covering it, or we'll be wrapping it in plastic, and that will seal out all the air, and therefore it can go through its fermentation underneath the plastic. So we do not have to wait the 5 to 7 days we need to make it into dry hay.
And why is that important to you as a dairy producer?
If we can make hay in 24 hours, that way we get a perfect, a uniform material, and therefore if we can feed a uniform material to our cattle, it'll cut down our feed costs and increase our milk.
So if the leaves are really what you're after too, to hold that protein?
Yes, the leaves are was where all the protein is at, and for a ruminant animal like a dairy cow, that's a very important factor in her diet.
And I notice it looks like you're about 1/10 bloom or so. Was that your goal?
Our goal is pre-bud, and so this is a 28. We cut on a 28-day schedule. This just happens to be a 32-day cutting schedule, so it's a little bit older than what we'd like.
Did the weather impact you on that?
A little bit. When we cut first crop, then we had a window of opportunity, and we wanted to make sure we got this field done for the show, so we get a good regrowth for the show.
Well, you talked about the quality being so important for you getting milk production and probably cutting down on veterinarian costs. What other things happen if you get poor quality hay or don't get it up in time and it goes out of condition for you?
Right. If we have hay down and we get rained on, the quality is going to go down. There's not as much nutrients in the alfalfa, so we'll have to supplement that. And if it sits too long in the field, one of the other things that'll happen is it'll stunt the growth for the next crop next month.
Kind of like when someone mows the lawn and leaves a big brown thatch?
Right. It's hard to get rid of it, and it holds that grass back. And we want to get it as green and growing as fast as we can.
Well, you've been very generous in letting people come to your farm, exhibitors and the show itself and other farmers. Why do you do that?
For us, it's more of for the community and the farmers then that are around, because this show will rotate from Iowa and Wisconsin, and so we thought if we could host it, we could have more people here and put on a really good show for them, so they don't have to drive as far.
What makes you happiest seeing this expo on your farm?
The kids, as they leave, the kids always have a smile on their face, and talking with the adults, if they were able to meet somebody at a booth, maybe to learn something, to pick something new up that they can take back to their farm and make that better, that's our goal.
Nice. And I would like to say thank you to all the dairy farmers for the ice cream, milk, and other dairy products. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Stay with us as we explore more of the Hay and Forage Expo. We're still at the Hay and Forage Expo in Cannon Falls, Minnesota, and with me is Cole Carling of Case IH. Cole, welcome.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, tell the audience in Farm Connections what's happening up here at Cannon Falls at the Hay and Ag Expo.
So here at the Hay and Forage Expo today, what we've been doing is a lot of different manufacturers have come set up some booths here at the lots. And it's an opportunity for prospective customers and current customers to come look at the new technology, look at the new machines, see what we're out promoting, and then also see the demos we're doing out in the field.
Cole, what makes your technology special?
Well, there's a lot of different things Case IH is involved in when it comes to technology. One of the big ones we have going on today is auto guidance. We're using auto guidance in our tractors, our combines, our sprayers, and now in our windrowers. So now as an operator, instead of you sitting in the machine and stressing out as you drive it 10 hours a day cutting hay, you have the ability to set your auto guidance, set an A-B line. You can make perfect 16-foot or 15.5-foot swaths. You can sit in the cab, hit start, and listen to the radio, check out how your machine's doing, and it makes your job as an operator a lot easier.
Well, Cole, in the past when we wanted to monitor moisture, we would either go out and do a crumple test or take the forage to a remote site or have a remote or bring an instrument with us and check the moisture. You said do it on the fly. How do you do that?
Well, here's what we have. With our balers now, our large square balers, we have the ability to put an RFID chip directly on the bale. Here's an example of what it is. So what happens is you run that baler, it's going to read what the moisture level is of the bale, it's going to read the time that the bale was made, the date, all that information, it's going to load it onto that chip. That chip is then wrapped around the bale on the string and it's dropped in the field. is the operator comes by and picks up the bales. He has this sensor that will read that information. It keeps track of it. As he puts it in the stack at his yard, it's going to sit there. Then as he ships that hay out to his customer, whether they're selling it to a dairy or he's feeding it to his own cows, he can read it off the loader with this sensor, and he can tell what bales he is feeding to his animals. This is going to tell you the relative feed value of the hay. It's going to tell you, like I said, the moisture level, the date that it was done baled, the time, the field. It's going to put all that information in there. Another advantage it's going to have for you as an operator is if you have different quality of hay. If some of it was rained on and you bale it with this, or if you have a young crop over here that you bale, you have the ability to keep track of those bales, and as you unload them off the truck, you can stack them and sort them according to the quality of feed. Then when you're feeding your cows, you have the ability to know how you want to mix your rations to maximize the milk output of those animals.
Thank you, Cole.
Thank you, Dan.
Great information. Stay with us. Kent Deasy is up next.
Thanks, Dan. Today I want to talk to you about the impact of changing farm income trends. 2014 was one of the lowest profit years since 2009 for southern Minnesota crop producers and crop producers everywhere. However, livestock producers across the entire region had one of their most profitable years ever in 2014. As we look at the importance of the farm economy, the average farmer, according to Farm Business Management records, spends about $1 million a year on goods and services for crop inputs, livestock input and supplies, as well as for capital purchases and family living needs. So every farmer has a very big impact on rural communities and creating jobs and helping the well-being of our rural communities. Based on the 2014 Farm Business Management records of over 1,300 farms in southern and western Minnesota through the MnSCU Farm Business Management Program and University of Minnesota Farm Management, based on that analysis, the average farm in 2014 had an average net farm income of $96,000. Now that $96,000 is what's left after all the payments have been made for crop inputs, capital purchases, any expenses on the farm. That's what's left to live on, as well as any money for investment, reinvestment back into the farm. By comparison, that was actually 30% higher than a year earlier, primarily due to the extra profits in livestock production. The crop production, as I mentioned earlier, struggled a little bit in 2014. The average acre of corn had a net loss of $50 per acre. Soybeans were about break even. By comparison, dairy producers had one of their best years ever, averaging a net profit of over $1,200 per cow. And in hog finishing, the average return was over $30 per hog finished. So again, very strong year for livestock. If we go back 2 years earlier, 2012 was a record year for crop producers. They had an average net return that year of $250 an acre, where livestock producers lost money in 2012. The overall economy in many rural areas has been greatly enhanced by strong profits in recent years. However, 2015 appears to be the beginning of much tighter margins for farm operators, especially for crop producers. This will likely also impact rural communities as we go forward. I'm Kent Deasy, and we'll see you again next time.
Joining us on Farm Connections today is Brian Ahrens, who farms in the Claremont-Owatonna area. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, thanks for letting us come to your farm. In back of us is a wonderful field of sweet green peas. How long have you been farming?
I farm in partnership with my two brothers, and we started farming in the partnership originally with my father in 1976.
So a while.
Yes, almost 40 years.
And the partnership is still alive and well.
Yes.
So when you raise sweet green peas, there must be some reason you do this other than you like peas. Why do you do this?
Well, we do it for agronomic as well as economic reasons. Economically, you don't have the expense you have with soybeans or corn because the seed is paid for. You don't have any harvesting costs. The canning company, Lakeside, harvests it for us. So you save on fuel, no drying costs. So you might not gross as much as corn and soybeans, but you won't have much expenses either.
So in the fall, instead of harvesting this like your corn and soybeans, it's actually done in July.
Yes.
So tell us how this starts. I mean, do you all of a sudden wake up one day in May and say, I'm going to plant peas, or does it start long, long before that?
Well, peas are, we treat peas, it's not just a sideline crop, it's still part of our main crop. Although we don't grow as many acres, you have to watch rotation for peas. Typically they say 4 years, but we prefer 10 to 15 years of not going back to peas to break the disease cycle and stuff like that. So in our head, we're planning a year or two ahead where we think we're going to go with peas.
And possibly one advantage is peas are a legume and it fixes some nitrogen for you?
Yes, that's one of the agronomic reasons we do it. It breaks typically we're 2 years corn and a year of soybeans, or else corn and soybean rotation. And by putting peas in there, we break a cycle of that. So instead of soybeans coming back to a field, you'll have, instead of 2 years, it could be 4 or 5 years. And you'll notice the yield increase, soybeans coming after peas.
Is there any crop insurance in case of failure?
Yes, there is. It's just like your other crops. You have an APH, you have a yield history, and it bases off of that.
Brian, you mentioned APH. What does that stand for?
Actual production history. It's a history of the yield in the crop over time to give the insurance company a benchmark yield that they'll base your if you have a loss off of that.
That sounds fair. That way they won't underpay, hopefully, and they probably feel like they won't overpay.
Correct.
And it keeps you in production or cash flow so that you can come back and
Correct.
be farming another year.
Yes.
Which we want, because I get hungry.
Yeah.
And thinking about peas, there's 8 or more grams of protein per cup. How do you feel about growing something that's healthy?
Well, like I said, you can't beat peas and out of a garden. It's just that this is a larger garden.
A big garden.
A big garden.
How far away do the trucks go to deliver the peas?
Well, from here, from this field, it'd be about a 15-mile trip. But I'm sure, I know some of their fields, they probably go 50, 60 miles.
I'm guessing they want it spread out too to risk
management. Yes, their crop, yep. Rains, scattered rains, hail, or just to spread their risk out also.
So this growing season or fall, you'll do a soil test for maybe next year's growing season?
Yes, typically every 4 to 5 years we will grid sample a whole field and get the nutrients, put them in the right place so we're not overspending or over applying any fertilizer.
Mostly phosphorus, potassium, and pH?
Nitrogen. pH has become a big thing for us. We've been liming pretty heavily for 15 years now. And so for peas, you want your pH at an optimum level. So all our fields are on a lime rotation.
Boy, there's a lot to think about.
Yes.
Well, again, it's a beautiful stand, and thank you for helping feed us.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more Farm Connections. With With us at harvest time is Kurt Lang from the Lakeside Food Company. Thanks for joining us, Kurt.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, it's pretty fun watching the harvest happen of the green sweet pea. And I noticed that we've got a lot of pods out there. What's happening as the machines go through and harvest these peas?
The machines, on the front of the machine, there's a reel with some teeth on it, like a hay rake. And that strips the vines or strips the pods off and some of the vines off on the going up into the machine. And then there's belts and conveyors that take it up into the machine. Inside the machine, there's 4 threshing drums, satellite drums that spin around, and they knock that pea vine against some screens that are on the outside. And that breaks that pod apart and allows the peas to fall down through, and then they're conveyed back up into a hopper in the front. And coming out of the back is just the vines after it's been beat up, and some pods, broken pods that come there that are with the peas removed out of them. And as you can see, we need quite a few of them to get the job done, but we do run them right around the clock, 24 hours a day during the processing season.
And what is that processing season?
We started on June 26th this year and should finish up the last days of July.
When I look at the plant, I see that, the pods, of course, and there's some leaves on there for photosynthesis.
Yes.
And then we know that this plant is a legume, so on the bottom there's some rhizomes. What do they do?
Yes, that's nitrogen. It produces nitrogen back into the soil for the next crop. Just stays there, so yes.
What do you look for in a field of peas to determine if it's a good field or it maybe is one that's a little bit struggling?
That's a nice question. We go through field trials to look for what our specific needs are that fit our customers' needs, along with our growers' needs on yields. As you can see, there's numerous pods on that plant. That's a consideration that we have. With the vines on there, it's an aphyllus, so it'll stay up off the ground so we don't get dirt mixed in with it when we're doing the processing. And also the size of the berry, the quality when it gets down to it, that our QA individuals see, and our salespeople on sales, what the customer wants, and make sure that we got a quality product. Yes,
Quality
sir.
and customer focused.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Exploring career opportunities in agriculture. Ag 101. Funding for Ag 101 provided by the Ag Star Fund for Rural America.
Hello, we're joined here with Sam Johnson from the Glenville FFA chapter. And Sam, welcome to the State FFA Convention.
Thank you very much.
Well, Sam, let's learn about your career aspirations and what you're doing right now. I believe you're in college, and why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, currently I'm a freshman at South Dakota State University studying ag business and ag leadership. Following graduation, I hope to attend law school to receive a degree in agricultural law, and in turn, hopefully work for the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
That's great. Some wonderful career aspirations. So let's break that down a little bit. Okay, great. So now you're in your first year at SDSU. Tell us a little bit about that major and how you became to know that you wanted to major in that, and how you became so specific on your career choice.
Currently, I have a really love for math, and I really like numbers and the details in regards to a business, and then I also wanted to do something with agriculture, something that I'm passionate about. So ag business kind of just went together and kind of something that was already knew that I was going to do before I even went in. I went to college, and they kind of saw the leadership that I've developed through the FFA organization, and they thought I would be a good candidate for the ag leadership major. I added that this year, and it was something, it's probably the best decision that I've made through the classes, as through the FFA I've developed my leadership potential, but also through the classes and different opportunities that I've had, it's kind of geared me and helped me decide that politics is something that I really want to do, and law school will help me get there.
Oh, that's excellent. So, what we're learning here is through your experience now that, you'll be able to go out into the world with that kind of a career and make a difference in ag policy and ag literacy and various, organizations and constituents that are representing the agricultural field. And so you'll be at the heart of that and making a difference with that career and that major choice. I love the mathematics component as well. You're not always seeing that combination, so that's going to be nice. You could also maybe go into industry or consulting consulting with mathematics and even logistics or manufacturing or some kind of an egg food policy law. There are so many jobs that you can do with the Washington, D.C., in D.C. and with the egg background. You know, you could be a lobbyist, you could be a staffer, you could represent an organization. And so do you have any aspirations right now that you think you'd like to be when you're done with law school?
Right now, I really am passionate about voicing the word of agriculturists today. So in turn, my idea right now is to work for either the American Farm Bureau, the National Corn Growers, or the National Soybean Growers, and their Government Analysis Department, and kind of see how different laws or different bills going through the Congress today would affect American agriculturists. And I really want to be able to voice the concerns of agriculturists either in favor or against that law or bill, so that every voice of agriculture is heard within Congress at a national level.
I could really see you also making a difference in things like the Food Safety and Modernization Act, or FSMA, in the future, with, you know, maybe being in Congress in DC. And so I wish you the best of luck, Sam. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We've learned a great deal about growing food for livestock and ourselves as we've traveled around southern Minnesota. We're fortunate to have such a diverse agriculture community. I'm your host, Dan Huffman. I hope you'll join me again on another episode of Farm Connections.